Hello and welcome to Immediate Immersion Live. Get ready to discover how humor isn't just about fun, but a powerful tool to supercharge your language learning. Stay tuned to uncover 10 side-splitting strategies that will transform your approach to language forever. My name is Scott, and you're watching Immediate Immersion Live, where we're all about comprehension-based instruction in the modern language classroom. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. So how's everybody doing this Thursday? Sorry I couldn't join you on Monday. I had a little bit of a stomach bug that went on, but I'm here today and I want to talk about humor in the classroom. So let me know how everybody's doing. Let me know in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and put it in the comments below. Also, if you're watching on the replay, let me know what day is better for you, what time is better for you. I'd like to get more of us showing up live. So, before I get started, I do want to just cover a couple of things to get out of the way. If you haven't already heard, we have our one verb story scripts and readings. Let me put the link up here for you. Oops. And there we go. So you can go and pre-order through Friday, through tomorrow. You can get these. They're over 70 story scripts and accompanying full-fledged readings that focus on one verb at a time. There are 5 story scripts and readings for each of the Sweet 16 verbs. I don't do there is because that one just comes up naturally throughout. So it's 15 of them for Spanish and then 14 for French, German, and English. You can go to the sales page here. You can check out samples. There are samples in French, German, Spanish, and English. Remember that these are pre-ready. They're not ready just yet, so they're not in their final form. So they're rough, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we've got going on. They're $27 through tomorrow, Friday, the 15th of March. After that, they will go up to $47, which is their regular price. It's over 200 pages of digital content that you can use for your classroom. And then on the 25th of March, the live ones will be available. So if you're interested in taking advantage of the pre-order, go to mm.us/oneverb-preorder and order them now before tomorrow so that you can take advantage of the special. So with that having been said, let's go ahead and get on with the content today. So today we're talking about humor in the classroom. And so the first thing I want to talk about today is incorporating visual humor. Sorry, really thirsty again. So one thing you can do is create memes. Kids love memes. We didn't have them when we were growing up. The closest thing we had were those posters we hung up in our room with funny little sayings on them, like hang on, and had the cat hanging on by one paw, things like that. But we can incorporate memes using the vocabulary that we're focusing on in our classroom. We can find popular, age-appropriate memes in the target language to introduce new vocabulary. We can also create our own. There's lots of meme generation apps out there online that you can do. So you can find funny pictures and then add captions to them. Or you can even assign them to students to either find them themselves in the target language or to create some funny ones of their own, or maybe even translate some of the ones that are in English or whatever their home language is. And this works so well because memes are inherently engaging and can provide memorable context for words or phrases. And kids like them already. They're already checking them out. They're already sharing them with their friends. So having them engage with them in a second language is an incredible way to be able to get them to engage with the language in a way that they're already doing it in their home language. And so it's not a far stretch. It's fun for the kids, and it's a way to get them really, really engaged. You might even think about starting every class with a new meme. You can introduce it, you can discuss it, you can talk about why it's funny. Your kids can vote on it, whether they think it's funny or not, or if it's, a dad joke, whatever might come with that. But engage them in those. The ones that they come up with, they can share them with you in advance and you can talk about theirs. You can add one a day in your classroom for that as well. Anything that you can do to engage them with the meme based activities is a great use of time and a way for them to explore the target language, focusing on the vocabulary that you want to focus on. Another thing kids really, really get, I don't get these very much, but I know a lot of adults are in them too. But for me, I'm not a real big GIF person. Or if some people say GIF, I say GIF. But funny GIFs are another way that you can use and introduce vocabulary or even grammar in the classroom. So you can find, there's lots of things that make fun of grammar in the classroom. So you can find them on there. So you can do Google searches for different GIFs that have to do with grammar to introduce or to reinforce grammar points. Um, Using funny GIFs, because the imagery is going to stick in the brains of the kids. They're going to see the imagery, they're going to see the action that goes with a GIF, and then they're going to associate with the grammar or the vocabulary that you're trying to focus on. For example, if you're trying to teach the verb eat, you could find a GIF of someone like shoving food in their mouth, maybe Cookie Monster or something like that. That could be eats. Or I can't think of anything else for grammar off the top of my head, but you can do grammar searches to find different ones that might apply to some aspect of grammar that you are trying to teach. You can show a GIF of someone falling to teach action verbs or to illustrate tenses. You can do past tense, you can do future tense. Perhaps you can do, an action with like a crystal ball in front for the future. All of these types of things will help kids to focus on the action and associate it with either vocabulary or a grammar point, which will help solidify it in their brains. And the last thing I'm going to talk about for visual humor is comic strip creation. So I like to create comic strips to tell stories in class. I'll use clip art. I'll create like 4 slides on a Google slide. Each slide represents one frame of my comic strip. And then I'll find clip art that I can do to make my comic strip live. Now, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me, thank you. So, that's one thing you can do. You can have students create their own comic strips. They can either draw them out on a piece of paper. You can give them maybe a copy of a storyboard that they can do, or you can show them how to do it in Google Slides where they're doing 1 slide per frame, and then show them maybe using Canva, because you can get a free pro account of Canva with a teacher account, and then students can then add their own information that way through Canva to create their graphics if they want to do it that way. So any way they want to create them, whether they draw them naturally, they use Google Slides with clip art, or they use Canva, any way they can do it to create their own comic strips that focus on the vocabulary and the structures that you're working on in your classroom. That's what the key is. That's what you're trying to do. And this encourages creative use of language, which is way at the top of Bloom's. Remember, creation is at the top of Bloom's, and that's what we want our kids to be able to do. We don't want them just to apply language. That's just regurgitating. That's performance. We want proficiency. And the only way students can show proficiency is by creating something new from what they already know in the language. And comic strips are a great way to do that. Plus, it provides a visual and humorous way to solidify learning. As they're thinking of their drawings or their sketches to flesh out their stories, they're thinking also about the words and the structures and the sentences that they have to use to express those ideas. So it's a great way to solidify what the kids are doing, what you're studying, and get it in the kids' brains in a fun way. And kids like to draw, even if they're not good at it, they're just drawing stick figures, that is perfectly okay. It's not the art that's involved here, it's the process of thinking through this. What am I going to draw to represent the text that I need, and putting the two together and using the artistic and the logistic part of the brain coming together, it really solidifies the language in their heads. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the comments below. And if you're finding any value in this, please like and subscribe so that it can get out to more teachers to be able to see and learn how to use comprehensible input in their classrooms. Okay, let's go to the, whoops, I clicked the wrong button. I always do that. Okay, let's go and talk about humorous activities. So you want these to be interactive. So one thing you can do are language game shows. Create a classroom game show. It could be Jeopardy. It could be, whatever. You can kind of put twists on modern game shows that are out there where students have to answer questions or complete tasks in the target language. The twist is to include silly challenges or funny penalties for incorrect answers. So I do a lot of these types of things. I have Jeopardy that I do. I do a lot of those, funny or embarrassing kind of challenges that go with, Survivor or Big Brother. So kids have to answer a question for the opportunity to do the challenge. And then if they complete the challenge, then they get the point for their team. So I have, funny little ones like I'll have like a huge drink of glass of water, and I'll have a straw, and they have to answer a question, and then they have to drink that whole glass of water in like 20 seconds with drinking through the straw. If they can do it, great, they get the point. If not, they don't. Or another one is I use some beans where they have to then use a straw to suck the beans from one bowl and put them into another. So I might give them a minute to get 25 beans sucked from one bowl. So they have to use the straw to suck and hold the bean and then move it to the next bowl over and try to get that done in the full minute. There's lots of different activities. You can Google search minute to win it activities. Those are some fun ones. Or I use things that I see like that I can adapt from Survivor or Big Brother or other game shows that you find on TV for them to be able to play those little games. And kids really, really like it. And it makes just a fun spin on class. It could be great for review, like reviewing a chapter of a novel or a story that you've been doing, or it could be a review for vocabulary. Kids find this really, really fun to do. If you can take it outside, it's even better. One I've gotten from Survivor is, they will... we do this one outside. They go out, they answer their question, then they've got to be turned around 10 times. And then they're blindfolded, and then they've got to get to a certain spot in front of them. So their friends will then tell them, then their teammates will tell them whether they're going straight, left, right, back, all in the target language, and the kids got to try to get there so they can get to the finish line. But they can't see the finish line, and they're dizzy because they were spun around 10 times. Those are just some ideas that you can use. Puns and wordplay challenges. There are a lot of kids who like to do puns and wordplay. I have quite a few students who love puns and try to, I always call them dad jokes because they're really not that great, but the kids seem to like them. So encourage students to create puns or word plays in the target language or find them. One of the fun ones that I was typical in Spanish is, the baby fish asks the father fish, what is he doing? And he says nada. If you speak Spanish, it means that word means two things. It means swims, and it also means nothing. So it's kind of a pun on the words. So they can find ones that are already available in the target language, or they can try to make up their own. And this helps them to explore the language more deeply and understand the nuances of languages and the double entendres that are school appropriate that they can use, where words might have two meanings that you can play with there. Um, you can also do, wordplay challenges. You can have them, see if they can find a 15 word in the target language. So see what kind of words are available. Some languages are more adept at longer words like German, so you might be able to get to 20, 25 letters, and the kids got to really search to try to find those. Or you might have to do a little bit shorter ones with French and Spanish, but you still can find long words. Like, what's the longest word in the Spanish language? I can never say the word, but I think it's the word for ear, nose, and throat doctor. But do those searches and have kids try to find them for themselves and have them compete. That could be like an assignment to do at home, and then they come in the next day and be the first to submit it in their class for a prize and to see if they get it right. So those are always fun. Puns and word plays. I can't speak today. Improvisational skits. So have kids improvise. Give them something. It could be a contest. It could be like a charades type game. You could put little slips of paper in a hat. They pull one out and they've got to do that. And then they've got to make it understood to their teammates and have them guess it. Or it could just be, presentational and there's no guessing in there, but they're doing it in the target language. And this not only enhances speaking skills, because again, we're at that top of the Bloom's taxonomy because we are at the creation stage and they're being spontaneous. They have to think on their feet, which is really demonstration of being proficient in the language. We're not going for fluency. We know that takes years and years and years for it to happen. But we want them to be able to communicate in any situation that they may find themselves in. And this is one way that we can get them excited about that and give them the practice to do that. But not only that, it leads to unexpected and humorous situations. Kids will say the funniest things, whether it be deliberately or by accident. In Spanish, it's always funny when kids mix up the word hombre and hambre. Hombre means man and hambre means hunger. And in Spanish, to say I'm hungry, we say tengo hambre. But some kids mix up the words and they'll say tengo hombre, which means I have a man, which makes it funny. So there's lots of things that we can go on and do with these, and kids really have fun putting on these little skits, especially if they know they're not being graded on them, that they're just for fun or they're for charades or for something like that. It's a great way to get them involved in the language on a spontaneous level, so they actually have to use their brains to come up with phrases and sentences from what they already know. It's not something they can pre-memorize because they have no idea what we're talking, what they pull out of the hat. Next is humor in storytelling. Let's go ahead and switch our slide. So storytelling, that is our bread and butter. To ask the leading questions to get stories that kids develop in the classroom. We start with the same script for all of our students in all of our classes, but because every class is an individual, when we ask the questions, we get different answers and each story becomes different. But whenever we're asking a story in my class, I'm always looking for the funny. I'm looking for ways that I can make it more humorous. And so you can start with funny story starters. So here you would provide humorous opening sentences and have students continue the story in the target language. So you can do this in a multitude of ways. So if you're starting a story and you're doing a class story where you're going to act it out, you can just give that first sentence of the story and then start asking leading questions. Let's develop this character. Let's give this character a problem. Let's have the character try to solve the problem but fail miserably. And then let's have the character try to solve the problem and succeed. That's a great way to do that. But because you started with a humorous opening sentence, you found some funny sentence to start with, the rest of the story is naturally going to be funny. You can't help that. Next, You can also do where you start the sentence and then every student, you can do this in order or randomly, has to add the next sentence to the story. So then again, because you started with something funny, it lends itself to make the rest of the story funny. And then if you're doing it this round robin way where you're asking students, whether in a particular order or randomly, to um, add the sentences, you can write down the correct version of the sentences on like a Google Doc for everybody to see, and they can be copying it down as you go along. I love to do this because they get a record of the story they did. They can go back and see how we write stories. And then I can do some metacognitive thinking when I can talk about, look what we're doing here. We're developing our character. Look what we're doing here. We're developing our problem. So they can see how to create a story in the target language. And then I always let them know that don't start copying the sentence until I put punctuation on it at the end, because I might change the sentence, because I'm definitely going to correct it if it was given to me wrong by the student, but I might think of a better idea or a better way to represent as I go through the sentence. So my kids like doing this a lot, and they get to copy the information. They have it in their notebooks, and they can see example stories that they can reread at a later time. Another idea is to role play with a twist. Assign students roles in a story. I like to do this especially with some reading, whether it be a novel or it could be a children's story, or it could be just a extended reading of a story we've done in class already. But add a humorous twist, such as a character having a silly habit or using exaggerated expressions. Give them some way that they can make it a little bit more humorous on their end. Excuse me, I'm going to take another drink here. So that's another great way to be able to have fun with the language. So even though the story may not, talk about this, you can give them a silly habit. Maybe they sneeze after every third word. So they'll go, hola, me llamo Jorge. And they have to do that after 3 words. Or they have a funny look on their face. Maybe they only have one eye open while they're talking, or they make a grimace on their face. Anything to kind of give it some kind of funny way. And each character can have their own little funny little habit or exaggerated expression, so that everybody gets to take part and we all get to laugh together. It's another great way to inject humor in our way that we're already doing in our classroom, because we're always asking stories in one way or another. Another thing you can have them act out are movie talks. Those are another great way. They already have inherent humor built into them, but you can exaggerate that. Anything that you can exaggerate is really, really fun. Now, this isn't appropriate for all age levels, but I was teaching high school at the time, and they were going to play J-Lo. That's the character they were going to play. And they said, hold on. I can't play J-Lo just yet. And they went and got one of my stuffed animals, and they were wearing sweatpants, and they shoved it down the back of their pants to give the big butt of J-Lo. So it was funny. We laughed. It was high school, so, it was on the edge of appropriateness, but it wasn't inappropriate in any way. And it was just kind of a fun thing because she's known for that. And it was kind of a fun thing, and we all really, really laughed. So that's a great idea to do, is just to add those humorous and silly habits into your stories and have the kids act them out. Another thing you can do is going back to kind of that comic strip idea, but let's expand it to make a class comic book, a graphic novel. So it could be a long-term project that you can work on over many, many weeks. It doesn't mean you work on it only for those weeks, but maybe you work on it, once a week for a period of 6 to 10 weeks, whatever works best for you. And then you create a class comic book where each student contributes with a funny story or dialogue in the target language. So maybe you could, assign, small groups, and each one can be responsible for 2 or 3 pages that they work. Someone in their group will be artistic and they'll draw the graphics for it. Or if they don't have anybody who's artistic, maybe they'll have someone who looks for graphics to make their graphic novel. It can either be hand drawn, or it can be, use the graphics through computers. If it's hand drawn, you might want to scan the pages so you can put it in a digital form so you can have it for prosperity. So this is always another fun thing. Kids like graphic novels. They can get examples. If they do Spanish, Senor Woolley has some examples of graphic novels that you can use. Or maybe you can find some graphic novels in the target language that are already there that you can find and kids can go ahead and use as examples. Next, let's move on to humorous multimedia integration. Now, that's a lot of words there. So it's just maybe humorous multimedia. So kids are always watching YouTube, TikTok, all these types of things, and they get all these types of funny videos, funny short clips, and we can use the language to expand upon this. I know there are a couple of, I'm not a big TikTok watcher, but there are funny ones that are making fun of Hispanic culture. Now, it's Hispanics making fun of their own culture, so I'm okay with it. But there's like this one guy who plays himself and his mother. He puts a towel over his head to make it look like long hair, and that's supposed to represent his mother, and uses a lot of the stereotypes of mothers versus their children in there, and they're funny, they're appropriate, but they're funny. So you can use this in your classroom. Have kids, or you find funny videos on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, where kids can learn about the language. They're hearing the language, they're getting contextual learning, and they're finding humor in them because that's going to keep them engaged and want to know what's going on. You can also use them as prompts for exercises, so you can have them write about these or talk about these with their partners. The key to this is to make it comprehensible. It may not be comprehensible in its original format, so you can slow down the speech. You can add closed captions in there so they can see the words that are there. I wouldn't put the translations up there. I would not put those, but closed captions where it's actually the text in the target language is up there, because with the words spoken and the words written, that can help them understand. Plus, you can discuss it at length in the target language, trying to make it as comprehensible as possible before having them do something with it. Plus, you can have them find their own and bring back and see if they can discuss it and explain them. Anything that like that, because kids they're already on TikTok, and they're already on YouTube. So having them try to apply those things to the target language is another win-win for the classroom. Another thing are parody songs. So find or create parodies of popular songs, changing the lyrics to include vocabulary and grammar points. Kind of like, I'm going to forget what that guy's name is. Weird Al Yankovic. Do something like that with popular songs. They don't have to be songs in the target language that are popular, but they can make them to the same tune in the target language. And it makes it for some funny things, and they can act them out or make their own little music video with them. It's really, really funny when they get to do this and have that. And lastly, humorous podcasts. That's another great fun activity for kids to listen to podcasts or audio clips that you can find on Spotify, on Apple Music, YouTube, that they're talking in the target language, and you can integrate them into your lessons. Sometimes they can be stories that are being told. Alisa Yel does it in French. Dreaming in Spanish does it in Spanish. Those are just two that come off the top of my head. There are lots of them out there they can do. There's Easy German out there too that does some German ones that they can listen to. And you can use them for like an introduction to a lesson or a basis for discussions or comprehension exercises. You can have them to really try to focus on them. Some of them have progression to them from easier to more difficult. So you can start with the earlier ones, and they can watch and listen and try to figure out what's going on by asking the comprehension questions, and you can discuss them in there and see what's going on, discuss the nuances, the culture, the language, the vocabulary, the accents in there. so that you can really work these to the best of your knowledge. And kids really do enjoy listening to these, especially if they have some humorous aspect to them. They have funny little stories or funny little endings that happen. Lastly, let's talk about unexpected humor. So, many teachers start with a joke of the day. So you can start a class with a joke of the day. You can either get your own, or you can have students go and look for them and then submit them to you that you can talk about, and add that in a slide like at the beginning of the class period, and then you can talk about and give out the joke of the day. You can ask if anybody else knows any jokes that they can add to it, and spend 2-3 minutes on this and then move on. But it's another fun way where kids get to engage with the language in a way that native speakers would engage with the language. These are jokes that native speakers might tell, and it's a way for them to engage in the language, in the culture, in the context of the language that they are learning. Funny rewards and incentives. Use humorous rewards for participation or achievements, like funny stickers or certificates with jokes in the target language. Like you could have like the most talkative and have a funny little reward that goes with that. Or just find different things that you can find that you would give, and give funny rewards and incentives to get kids to participate, to be funny, to let themselves be funny in the classroom. Kind of like blooper awards. And lastly, humor in error correction. So we can correct mistakes in a light-hearted way, perhaps using a funny character voice or creating a humorous context around the error to reduce anxiety and make the learning process more enjoyable. And I'll tell you one that I did many, many years ago. It was my first couple of years teaching. I was teaching high school, and I had this kid who I knew was 17, and on a test, he wrote, Tengo 16 años. And I'll explain that for not our Spanish teachers. So when I got the test, I passed the test back. I was going over the answers, and when we got to this question, I looked at him, and he says, "What? I forgot how to say 17." I said, "That's not the problem." I went to my desk, I got a pass, and I wrote a pass to the nurse, and I handed it to him. I said, "It's an emergency. You need to go to the nurse." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Because you have 16 anuses, and I'm afraid you might leak. So you need to go to the nurse." And he's like, "What?" And then I pointed out that in Spanish, the word anos is anus. And kids will often write it that way. They'll forget the little squiggly line, the tilde, that goes over the N, which changes the word from anus to years. And so kids often make this mistake. So I always point it out in this kind of funny way. And then they laugh about it, and they don't make the mistake after that because they don't want to say that they have X amount of anuses. So those are the funny ways that you can talk about humor in the error correction. And he was a good sport, so I knew that I could play with him a little bit, and he wasn't going to get angry, upset with that. But it was kind of a funny way to show them that that's not how we say that. We got to be really careful, and spelling can make a huge difference in some words. So those are some ways that are unexpected. We all know the regular ways to be able to put humor in the classroom, but here are some different ways that you can add humor into the classroom on a regular basis to keep kids more engaged. And when they're more engaged, they're less likely to cause behavior problems in your classroom. So you want to get them engaged as much as possible. If you found this helpful in any way, please like and subscribe so that we can get this out to more and more people. So share it, like it, subscribe. We're trying to get up to that 1,000 mark. We're close. We're almost at 900, but we'd like to get to that 1,000 mark as quickly as possible. So you can help us out by sharing this content out with other teachers and liking it if you found anything in this helpful. Of all the tips that we talked about today, which tip are you going to try first. Let us know in the comments or in the chat. I'm excited to read about those. And remember, if you want to take advantage of our oops, that's the wrong thing I want to put up there. There it is. If you wanted to take advantage of our one verb pre-order to get our list of over 70 simple one verb scripts and accompanying readings that go with them, go to mm.us/oneverb-preorder. The link is on your screen. And then you can take advantage of our $27 pre-order offer. They'll become available on the 25th of March. But the pre-order offer ends tomorrow, Friday. After that, the price will go up to $47. So if you want to take advantage of the $20 discount, order right away. So with that, everybody have a great week, and I will talk to you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye.